Well, thanks for joining us today. Today is August 18th, I want to say. This is the weekly briefing. This is the once a week when we get together, kind of share what we know what's happening around the industry, keep people up to date with some of the trends that are going on, or advance some of the items that we see in Rev Community. So welcome to this show. Again, Emmett and I, today we're going to talk about creating a winning sales plan for a recession. There's clearly some things happening in our economy. When you are facing these market trends and what have you, there's different things we need to do as business owners to prepare for this kind of plan. And Emmett is here to kind of like keep us on track and give us some of those better insights. So Emmett, I say, let's get started. Let's turn off the screen share and
Sounds good.
have a conversation. I think to begin with in a conversation like this, it's probably pretty smart just to discuss what a recession is. I think that's a term that's thrown around a lot, especially recently. I think technically we're in a recession because technically a recession is marked by two consecutive quarters of a country whose GDP has fallen. And in the US, that's been true now. So we're definitely in that economic kind of trend of a recession, but there's also some unique behaviors because it's coming off the end of a pandemic that makes it a little bit strange. So I think we know it technically, but we're not yet experiencing it, and it's giving people a little bit of a mental exercise of how bad is this going to be and if we're really going to get there. When we start thinking about running a business, Emmett, you actually own a consumer product good business. You sell other product goods. Are you noticing with your other company that you're seeing some of the sales drop and expenses increase and kind of those things that we hear about in the Main Street kind of sales
in the news
economy? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think certainly price is increasing across the board. Supply chain issues, everything is suffering these long tail effects from people shutting things down for 6 months at a time. Like, it's hard to still see. We don't see the impacts in our daily lives, but the supply chain, the manufacturing world certainly does. So I'm suffering from some of that. But I think more globally, or more relevant to this industry, we're seeing the shock still of those cash conservation decisions and just the money that people are holding on to now that they haven't been in the past.
Yeah, it is. So kind of what you're alluding to is that there is something that has happened because of the giveaways, or the PPP and the EIDL. I guess it wasn't given away, but the economic boost that came about to help us with the pandemic and the shutdown. There actually was a really gigantic boost in the savings rate for a lot of corporations and individuals, bigger than ever before. And some of why, I don't know if you all had the same experience, but the consumer trends totally picked up in that time as well, because money was coming at us at a greater rate than before. So people were buying, like trampolines and workout equipment. And I sold like a crappy boat that I've had in my backyard. I sold it for 4 times more than I would have ever. There was like a bidding war for it.
Right.
People just
what was it? Webcams. Remember, webcams were impossible to find because everyone was working from home.
Yeah. And then recently I was trying to make a cleaning agent. I went to the store and tried to get distilled water. And the latest store said there's no distilled water. It's like baby formula. You can't get it. I'm thinking, how it's water? How do we have a distilled water problem? So you go from an abundance and kind of like economic boom to now like unusual things having a hit and miss. In our industry, what we're really seeing though is people have felt a really powerful first half of this year. And a lot of my clients would say it's the best 6 months they've ever had, a super boom for them. And they're projecting larger revenue dollars through the end of the year than any previous year. So there are people that are recognizing and seeing this major boom, but then we're hearing and seeing real economic trends like interest rates going up, which slows down money, right? When interest rates go up, people borrow less, slows down the money, and a drop in the GDP. We know there's a recession coming. And even though we might not feel it as consumers, as small business owners, large corporations are making decisions, and therefore marketing decisions are being made differently. and our industry is going to be impacted from it. So the topic today is really to discuss, hey, what's the right actions? What are the right moves that we need to do when planning for, thinking ahead of the year, thinking ahead for the next year of what it might look like if we were in a recession? What work can we do? And specifically, I chose sales, because I think sales is the front line that's going to see and hear it first. What's the work that we could do in sales to kind of work our way through this problem? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, well, I like what you're saying. Sales is the front line because you can't really save your way out of debt. You need to sell and to bring more money into the company instead of just stopping the outflow of money. So it's a hard problem. I mean, two ways to increase your bottom line is make more or spend less. But in some ways, you really do just need the sales.
The sales is so, we often joke about people believe that sales will solve all the problems. And they want the idea to be like, okay, well, it's easy. I'll just go get more sales. As if sales were that readily available and they just didn't try to get sales currently or in the past. So I'll finally go try, that's the kind of thinking. But what we know is a lot of people put effort into sales. People want to grow their company in good times and bad. So sales is an effort people put into it. But the work of sales often is that translation of the positioning you have in the marketplace and then the work you're about ready to perform. A salesperson is one who's recognizing, kind of listening directly to a client, very specific on a project by project basis, and they have to hear something different. So one of the first things I think about when I was thinking about this problem is, in sales, you can't be tone deaf to what's coming about. You might personally not be experiencing a recession, as we said, or your company might not be feeling it because it's busy. But if your clients are coming to you because the CFO of their corporation said, we need to cut some things back, a recession's coming, your client is coming at you with possibly new needs, and you can't be tone deaf to it. You can't be looking at your microcosm of a business or microcosm of a life, expecting that to be the problem or that to be the environment that everyone's working in. So one is just if you know what's happening, you might be able to ask new questions or understand new parameters. And one thought I have is even the idea of introducing words about efficiency into your sales process to see if clients respond or not, I think is a very important way just to start that listening tour you need to have with clients to see if you're hitting the mark or not.
Right. Yeah. Just because your world seems a certain way to you doesn't mean everybody shares that perspective. And the quickest way to lose a sale is to not connect with the person. So if you say something off the mark and they're like, nope, that's not right, they're not going to hire you.
Yeah. And then as the let's say the strength of the recession or the impact of bigger economic problems might come into effect, you're actually going to have to start even changing your language around your pricing structure, what's relevant, and how you put things out there. And we use the term pricing very specifically. We should make sure understands this, that pricing is not rates. We're not saying, hey, you should go cut your rates to make your client more happy. No, if your rate is based on the cost that you pay others, and that's the rate you need to earn to keep yourself profitable, you can't cut that rate, but you can work on the pricing structure around an entire project. And what I mean by that is you might be able to find, what you should be doing is building a structure of pricing where the client knows what the workload is, what the needs are to keep them on track, how you're meeting their needs through all the deliverables. And therefore, the price they're paying has all that taken into account. And if they need to cut back the budget or work things around, you're working with them on that pricing, that pricing structure to find what they're willing to give and take to make that budget work for them. Sometimes you can keep the same project, the same type of deliverables, and the same quality, but even just cut back the schedule. And cutting back that schedule can make things more efficient, fit things into a tighter pocket, and therefore reduce some of the overall cost. So there are things you're going to want to work with your sales team to give them that big picture thinking of what's relevant or not. But first, as I said, I think you should start with the listening tour. Start asking questions, see what they're up against. and maybe even introduce the idea of efficiency to see if they respond to something like that. That's kind of a canary in the coal mine kind of a term to throw out there for them.
Got it.
Should I go into another point?
Move on. Yep.
Let's try another one here. Here's the thing, like in a recession, clients also need your services. This isn't a different type of need they need from you. Especially in a recession, they're worried about increasing their sales as well. Just like you are as a business owner, they make money by the product that they sell. So they still need marketing, they still need creative, they still need outreach items there. So therefore, the work that we do in our industry is a big necessity, even in a time of recession. But they're going to use this recession to kind of work new deals with you. They're going to use it as an excuse. There's going to be cutbacks in their business. There's going to be real problems they're trying to solve. But they still need those services from you. So you need to be specifically right now, be thinking about big picture ways of messaging your services to those clients so that they recognize that you are the solution in their time of need. I think about just simply the idea of when you're doing a presentation, you might want to start thinking about changing your messaging in your presentations. Something that has that tone I was talking about before of understanding of the economy we're going into, but also some recognition of what their product or their clients might be looking for. So I think about some of the trends in the subscribers for OTT platforms, and how Netflix and Disney are kind of really struggling to have growth that they've experienced now for many years. So if that was one of your clients, you could recognize that, hey, they're looking for audience growth, even in a time of recession. What does that messaging need to look like? Or what does the feeling need to look like in your creative execution that allows people to come in and still want to buy their product, even though their household might be bringing in less money or dealing with more inflation? So I think that sensitivity to how a market really works and start working that into your presentation, your creative execution is going to be very important. Then your clients will see you as the solution during their time of need, which is what you really want. You want to be the solution-based company to these clients' needs. That's when they're going to keep on coming back to you.
Right. Yeah, I was speaking with one of my clients just today. They asked me, it was a question about positioning, because they have a potential project that someone's asking them for 3 deliverables, and they would be an excellent fit for those deliverables. That's fine. But the client in an email said, we have met internally and decided what we need. And so my mind says, how do you get into that meeting? And how do you not only tell them that you can that you can execute their solution, but maybe you could give them a different idea of what the problem is and a different solution. The clients decided what they need, but how can you help them make that decision before they've made the decision internally? So I like that, because you're changing the conversation.
Yeah, you almost want to steal this moment, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, this is the moment you could find the solution to their need for growth, and they will come back to you and look for those answers. If you're waiting for them to do all the work, sometimes you miss that opportunity to be a collaborator. Not everyone has the chance to kind of be collaborating at a high level, but some understanding of how the economy works. Here's an example. I know like in 2000, I'm going to say 2008, 2009, I was working with an agency, and because of the downturn after the housing bubble burst, they were working with a large manufacturer who sells laundry detergent. And before, if they were working with this brand, they would have made like a lifestyle commercial, like kids and family and, big piles of food and, events or whatever, and everyone's wearing clean clothes. That's how they would have done it. When the strategy pivoted, they realized people are going to have to make decisions on where to do cutbacks. So we need to put in front of that customer the fact that they can't cut back on our product. So we're simply going to change and show commercials of how our product works, which means it's basically now just a person with a shirt pouring detergent into the washer and putting the clothes into it. That was the creative execution. But going very practical to say, hey, how do we remind people this is a necessity? And regardless if your household, has budget cuts, this is not where you want to cut your budget. those luxury items, those family goods, that feel good stuff, that big stuff, that's not how we're going to remind them of that. So that simple pivot's a reality of what marketers and strategists are doing right now, trying to imagine what it's like to stay on top of mind of their customers and selling those goods. And all of our clients have clients that are trying to do exactly that, or we're working directly with brands and they're solving those problems with you internally. So it's an important thing to remember is your clients might be having internal conversations that they're not having with you yet. And if you can be thinking like they're thinking and collaborate with them, they'll stick with you longer and keep you going. Let's talk about my third point I wanted to bring up today too is there's something about the word recession where immediately what we hear as people, but especially business owners, is scarcity. So it's the first thing we think of is like there's not going to be enough, and we have to really fight that need to like close everything down and think that scarcity is happening everywhere. Because often in a time of change, which is what this is, there's actually opportunity for growth, but it might just come in a different form. So if we're thinking that it's all about cutbacks and therefore we're going to immediately run to our bottom line or think differently, or our salespeople that we're asking to get out there in front of people are just talking about how cheap we are, how easy we are, we'll spend less, we'll be the low budget winner here. It's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. We're going to have scarcity because we didn't really have the resources we needed to get the job done. So instead, in a time of recession, you might not be able to accomplish at the same number of projects because their economy is making different choices and buyers are making different choices. But one thing you can do is work on longevity. And what I mean by that is you already have clients. How do you keep those clients on the hook longer? How do you work with them and give them confidence that you are the long-term solution? And you're really looking at more like customer lifetime value instead of one-by-one hits. This is a big change that you would have to think about and talk to your sales team about. Your sales team, if you've talked to them about growth, new, and those are the words you use, they're always looking for a new client, a new lead, a new project, and they're forgetting the ones you already have in-house. You might want to consider and think about and even compensate salespeople differently to give them encouragement to hold on to the clients we have and see if we can't build long-term relationships with them and winning relationships with them over the period. That's a way of growing that you don't often recognize, and it feels like, oh, well, that just feels like you're stagnant, but it doesn't have to be. Your top line can grow, the security of your business can grow, even your team can grow with that kind of strategy without really needing like the latest and greatest new product in-house to get the job done. So I think those three items are when I was thinking about this solution to this item, or this solution to this problem, I was thinking about those three items of like things that we often want to run one way, but we'll fight and run a different way. But really what I think the real big picture here is too, and business owners have to understand is like they're the visionary leaders of their company. And if we're going to do a pivot and make a change, or some of these things ring true for you, the real question we have is how are you going to sit down with your team and start implementing these ideas with your team? What does planning look like? That you can work with them through a process and ask them new questions and understand new scorecards with them. Or with your sales team and marketing team, what's the language you're going to use and how you're going to roll that out? I think that's always a kind of an issue with business owners is they have a big picture idea, but how do they actually work that through their business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing I'm hearing you say too is not only leading your team, but leading your clients and giving them confidence that there is more success potentially to come. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, or that you're going to help them be part of the solution and not just another drain on their budget. like are you really going to fire the only vendor that actually understands you or that's actually trying to help you solve your problem? No, you're going to keep them as long as you possibly can because they're contributing to the positive side, not the negative side.
Yeah. And as a business owner, think about how you can make some very reactionary decisions and think, oh, I need to do cutbacks. So these really important employees that I have, creative directors, producers, that feel like they're too expensive, if I pulled the rug out from underneath that, what kind of a system do I have? What kind of operation do I have inside my business to keep up with demand? When really, if you have a great team, this is the moment to lean on that team and get them involved and working together. If you are a creative director yourself, how do you work with your producers to understand the directions that you want to go to create kind of a new product for your client that has these, the needs for a recession-proofed product that they're making? And then again, specifically with your sales team, how do you give them a different way of presenting and thinking? Because sales folks really they know where they've won before, so they repeat that item over and over again.
Right.
And what we're saying here is it's a time to pivot and change. How do we find that new language and that new capability and understanding and help it grow?
Right. Yeah. Ryan Summers in the chat here has made a couple interesting points. One thing you mentioned at the beginning, he's asking about what sectors are positive to be targeting right now. And I think the point there is that the recession affects certain industries differently. So maybe the consumer goods market is on the downturn, but I don't know, cryptocurrency or streamers or whatever. Maybe there's some industry out there that's having a boom.
Yeah, what I've seen before is like even just travel, right? So travel doesn't always just go down. People still have summer break and time off, even when the economy is not so great. But they might change how they spend their money on a vacation. So they might not be going for the luxury vacations or the big vacations. They might be pivoting and changing to something else. But that means there are other markets that will take advantage of it. Different hotel chains, travel chains, and even just, again, like you're saying, like there are financial sectors that see certain booms when people stay local instead of grow. So there are ways that even when you're in certain industries, that if you're well versed in travel, that you'll see and feel that change moving from one segment to the other, but still need your services. You might even find that some brands are experiencing a growth because they're being used more often, and they're now willing to use and pay for your services at the higher mark than they were before, when they were competing with luxury brands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
another point.
Definitely like that opportunity to kind of think through strategically who you could reach out to and where that growth might happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ryan's most recent message here. He said, in some ways, we could be positioned as the subject matter expert in navigating these recession times for clients. And my wife works for a team of real estate agents, and that's exactly what he's done. He's seen that certain trends are turning back down, interest rates are going up, so people aren't buying as much. And he's switched to saying, yeah, it's time to buy. Interest rates are low, to saying, interest rates are high. Here's how you navigate that as well. So he's pivoted and remained the expert in both a boom and a bust type market.
Yeah, it's. I think that when you have some mechanism of control over the marketplace and the messaging, there's always opportunity to kind of recognize where your strength is and introduce your strength to new people. There's a great opportunity to do that, but also to recognize, like, that goes to the first point, like not being tone deaf and imagining, things are going to, the run you've been on is going to last forever. There's a sensitivity to the marketplace and what clients are up against.
Now, do you imagine, or I guess in your travels, do you see entrepreneurs frequently fall into that trap where they deny that something bad is happening or is about to happen?
The trick is that we are doing so many things, aren't we? So I'm running a project, I'm running a sales team, I have to talk to my financial team, I have a home life. So it's not that we are necessarily afraid of it or want to deny it. It's just that the things in front of us, the short term, is taking over the long term. So really, through a time of where we are right now, and to get to a time of recession, it actually takes time for planning. And the sooner you start, the easier it is to kind of get through that plan in bite-sized pieces. It also gives you a chance to bring on others and have them think about it. Not everyone's opinion is good. I think we know that, right? There are people out there that are just processing. They might not have the background that you have, or their perspective on how to solve problems is not so great. but your team really and team collaboration is what you can depend on to get out of some of where we're stuck as entrepreneurs. We might even delegate the job that we're doing, the project that we're working on, to someone else right now, so we can focus on the long-term big picture. It's just a necessity. Cutting back your time management. This is the time to start thinking about that, because that's what the practice you're going to need to have when the going gets tough. You need to know that your team is responding and responding well.
Got it. There's a question in chat here too we could go to if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, ask a question.
Okay. The question says, if we always charge by project, but the client, due to costs, need individual costs, how do you know how much to charge per item? Is there a formula for this? A formula for you to charge enough to pay the artist and still gain from that particular design or video?
That's a great question. The way we walk through that kind of scenario is using the factors method. And if you're not familiar with our factors method or our factor system, we definitely have videos online talking about this and talking about how to calculate your overall costs for a business in direct and indirect expenses that you have, and then generating splits so you can really control those items that are project related items through your production team and your overall big picture items for your company. Once you have that down, really getting down to, I think what the question here is, how do we know what the rates are? How do we properly calculate our rates and keep up with the costs that we have for our staff or our freelancers and keep it going? And what you need to know is this variable. It sounds like there's an opportunity to really work through that understanding with your team of what those costs are and put them together. And then you would have to kind of map out the bigger picture. So we might want to save this actually for next week or something, and time to talk through how do we get to cost and rate calculating and know what the opportunities are there to find efficiencies that we're looking for in business.
Right. Yeah. As clients get more and more price sensitive, it's important to be able to position your quote in a way that makes sense to the client.
Yeah, what you have to do is keep up with real costs for your business, right? So that's your employees, your freelancers, even any external costs that you're using with vendors. All of those are going to increase over time. So you have to have some sort of rate calculator that you keep up with those costs. But more important, and anyone that's kind of walked through the factor system knows, there are other hidden costs to running your business. Profit, longevity, sustainability all come from what those margins are. So if you're simply just keeping up with the costs, you're always going to be running a thin line. Your company won't grow. So it's really this navigating of what your future looks like, what your real needs are, making sure those needs are covered, and then giving the projects what's left over. And that's how the factors method kind of puts those priorities first and help people grow.
Yeah, thin margins are reserved for food service. We want to have nice, healthy margins when we're working creative services.
Yeah, I think food service and mechanics maybe are where the thin margins. At least I hope they are, especially when I need them, right? Yeah, we especially in our business, we don't have the opportunity for huge volume. So what we're looking for is specific clients that are qualified, that understand how our rates work, and then a value-based proposition. We're able to have a conversation with our clients to make them understand, hey, what we're giving you is going to create growth for your business or help you sustain sales. So we get rewarded when they get rewarded. And our rates, cost, and pricing all kind of fit together within those scenarios.
All right, well, here we are at the end of the hour, or the half hour.
I guess we did. That's a really challenging time that we're going to possibly walk into in 2023. We're now finishing, basically, we're midway through quarter 3, which means the beginning of quarter 4. It's only a few weeks away, or I guess 6 weeks away, that we're going to start looking ahead at next year's numbers, 2023 numbers. So if you haven't ever walked through the factor system, you've never done the splits with your business, you've never had a review for that, you should definitely jump in community, reach out to one of us. We can send you some videos because we've done this before and we are here in the weekly briefing, and we could show you a replay. And then there are also the factors classes coming up. And that's when we get, there's a crash course coming up, isn't there, Emmett? We're going to do a factors crash course? Yeah. So there's a
Works.
crash course coming up, which is really just a real fast seminar to get people up to speed on how the factors work and walk through a worksheet that you can do this yourself. So if you're interested in that and you want to know more, please just reach out to us through community and we'd be happy to get you signed up. Any other parting words? Thoughts?
No, not particularly. I'm excited about the factors course because I think we've done a lot of promoting of the factors method, but we haven't systematized how we present it and how we roll it out to our clients. So we're working on that as well because it's probably the quickest win that we can give you as a studio is to understand your costs, the real costs, not just what you spend, but how much you sacrifice as an owner if you don't put your salary into the cost of the project.
Yeah, you have to keep yourself fed. Well, thank you all for joining us this week in the weekly briefing. Emmett, I appreciate your support and help getting through this. There's actually a whole team of people at RevThink that we owe a thank you to. So all of you RevThinkers, Lydia, I know that you're jumping on even here producing this stuff for us. So thank you for those of you who stick with us week by week. We will see you next week and we'll bring up some of these other topics. But until then, thanks for joining us weekly briefing. And Emmett, we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, everybody.